back to talk about the next song on the album, which is called One Man's Life. As I'm talking through these songs, I'm kind of realizing that part of the way that I wrote is, I think, because I grew up on riff rock. I mean, I grew up on bands like Rainbow, Whitesnake, Deep Purple, Uriah Heep, everything being based around like a centered, repetitive riff. And so when I started writing songs, I think it was very natural for me to start writing the same way. And if I remember right, this was much like Dreamscape. This song came out of me just kind of playing around on the keyboard and trying different things. And then I came up with this main riff or melody. And then the song just evolved from there. And as I started to build the song, I came up with the idea that would really shape it together, and why I chose the title that I did. So this song is basically about a person's life from beginning to end. So in the beginning, you hear the synthesizers come in, and it's sort of the birthing of the character that we're following their story. And then the synthesizer comes in as they start growing up and getting through life. And then they meet someone. And those their voice and the person they meet are done by classical instruments. And then the middle synthesizer section is them kind of going through their lives together. Then we come back to another conversation where he's saying, please don't go. And she's saying, I have to, it's my time, but you're going to be okay. And then she passes, and we go and follow him through the rest of his journey until his end, which at this point is now very lonely because he's lost her, and he just kind of has to carry on until the end. In the original version, it went exactly that way. In this version, I modified a couple of things. I've kept it pretty much the same. I didn't add any instrumentation. I didn't really remove anything I didn't remove any sounds from it. But what I did was, at the end of her time, I actually kind of faded her out into like a wash of reverb as the angels come in to take her. And then in the final section, instead of just letting it all run to the end, because it does get very repetitive, and although I'm adding some instruments here and some interesting drum fills, it really just is a kind of repetitive thought. And I was going to cut that down, but I thought what I did with it was a little bit more interesting. I started just taking instruments slowly out of the mix. And those, I was thinking, would represent like his bodily system shutting down as he's heading towards his own end, and the angels taking him. And then at the end, the original synthesized part, which is sort of a reverse of the beginning. In the beginning, they're kind of these happy, we're coming to life sounds, and at the end, they're these kind of, this is it, we're done. And so I started dropping out the instrument tracks heading towards that end, with the angels still kind of holding over him through the last parts of his life. And that's why I called it One Man's Life. It was the journey of his life, and even though he has a companion, she's only there for a portion of his life. I mean, they're not born together, they don't grow up together, they meet at some point. And the song gets more complex as life gets more complex. The first section is very basic. It's him growing up, learning colors and tastes and sound, and developing thinking and all of that. And then the middle section is now them growing together because they've now met. So there's the childhood, the adulthood, and then the end of the time, which at this point is just very intense because now it's all these things that you've learned are in your head. They're swimming around. You try to have this experience before it's too late, and some of them you have and some of them you don't. And that's pretty much what the song was born on. It was an interesting one. And as I look back on it, for it being the 9th song that I wrote, I have to say I'm pretty proud of the amount of things that I found to do with it at that time. I think if I were to write it now, it would probably be too over the top for what it is. This needed to be a little more simpler of a song. And I think that now would have been a lot different, but I think it would have been... I think it was the right time to write that song, but I think it was really complex for where I was at the time as a writer. But it's one that I hope that you'll enjoy the journey of, and let me know what you think.